When I first started doing research for this video, I thought there'd be some pretty obvious cards that make the top 50. Things like a Bob Gibson rookie or a Red Heart Stan Musial or Mickey Mantle. But as I progressed my research into 1950s baseball cards, I was pleasantly shocked because these cards all make the honorable mentions. And some of the cards that are going to be featured on this list are very, very scarce. And unlike most of the lists that you'll see online that feature just tops and Bowman cards, I try to do a ton of research and throw in some foreign issues as well as food issues and much more. So let's take a look at what I would consider the top 50 most valuable baseball cards from the 1950s. And don't worry, I also have a pretty large honorable mention section with probably 20 plus cards. So let's take a look at this list. Okay, so how I made this list. First, I looked at grades throughout the spectrum. Sometimes when you get into 50s cards, there's a lot of set registry collectors, and they're going to pay a premium for a specific 10 or a 9 if there's very few graded. I didn't think that was the most accurate metric when you go across a full decade of cards. Also, I tried looking at both regional as well as foreign issues. But what I will mention for this video, I did not include salesman samples as well as postcards. So those are going to be excluded from my list. Also, I may have missed some international cards or regional issues. Sometimes these are extremely scarce. I couldn't find them with comps online with the tool that I'm using or some of the different auction houses. So if I did miss some cards that should have been on this list, please let me know down below in the comment section. I think that's one of the best parts about making these very research heavy focused videos is everyone that watches these videos or part of this community has a pretty deep knowledge base, and that's the way we all can learn as a community. Also, I limited cards to 2 per set. The reason for that is if you go to like 1952 tops, there's a lot of cards that could have potentially made the top 50. Now, I did mention a lot of those in the honorable mentions, but to try to include as many different sets as possible, I limited it to 2 per set. Some players you're just going to see a lot, right? There's going to be a lot of Mickey Mantle cards as well as Willie Mays cards. They're just extremely popular baseball players. So there is that side of things, but 2 per set. All right, let's jump into this list. First, we're going to start with a 1952 Victoria of Ray Dandridge. Dandridge was a Negro League player and has some cards in the 40s, but this Victoria set is pretty tough in the early 50s. PSA Authentic sold in 2024. This copy right over here for $2,000. Also should mention this set has Billy Herman as well as Minnie Minoso. I could not find any public comps for those, so Dandridge made the spot on this side of things. Those others, Minoso and Herman, possibly could have made the list, but it's hard to tell for sure. Up next, 1950 Dania of Willard Brown, another Negro Leaguer. Well, there's none of these at PSA with the highest graded, but the most expensive sale for this was back in 2015, where an SGC 5.5 sold for $5,700. And obviously, it's hard to predict the price point from 2015 to 2025, but this market of cards has increased quite a bit over the last 4 or 5 years, so this had to make the list. 1959 Venezuela Mickey Mantle. This is the first year of the Venezuela Tops run, which is from 1959 through 1968. I know there's other Venezuela reproduced top sets a little bit later, but that's what I think of like the core 50s and 60s Venezuela cards. Regardless, the highest graded of this card out there is PSA 5. These are very condition sensitive, and that 5 did sell in 2023 for $12,600. Even at low grades, this is a super expensive card. A 2 has sold for $3,400 back in 2020. 1953 Satchel Paige, pretty iconic card for the era. The highest graded on this is going to be a PSA 9, and a PSA 9 did sell in 2020 for $28,800. I do expect that card to go for a bit more if it went into auction today. I do believe Satchel Paige's popularity has increased over the last 5 years. And if you want to take a look at some other values, right, you can find a 3 for about $850, a 7 about $4,500, and 8 crosses the 5-figure threshold at $10,000. At number 6, we have a 1954 Johnston Cookies of Hank Aaron, card number 5 in that set. A bit tougher to find than his 1954 tops, but it does sell significantly less. The highest out there is a PSA 9. That might actually be changing though. I did see a post on Instagram. I think Heritage Auctions just picked up a bunch of these in mid to high grade. So I'll be curious if they end up getting a 10 out of those. Maybe they've already graded. I don't know. Regardless, in 2023, a 9 did sell for $29,400. And looking at the spectrum of grades, if you go to a 2, you're looking about $1,400, a 4, $2,500, and a 7 is about $7,000. I will be curious to see how the mid to upper grades on these are going to be impacted once all the ones Heritage has picked up get graded and sold in auctions. But it is Hank Aaron, and a lot of people do try to grab Aaron rookies, and you have either this one or the 54 tops. All right, 1954 Bowman Ted Williams. I do believe this card was pulled from production because there was a dispute with Ted Williams. If you're familiar with 54 tops, Ted Williams is card number 1 as well as 250. He wasn't supposed to be in Bowman because Bowman and Topps had a rivalry at the time. This card, highest graded out there, is a PSA 9, and that 9 sold all the way back in 2006 for $36,000. So that card is easily a 6-figure card today, and it's tough to predict exact comps again because it's about 20 years since a 9 has sold. Regardless, some other values, right? PSA 1 you can find slightly under $1,000. A 6 sells for about $4,500. An 8 is $16,000. 1950 Toleteros of Willard Brown. Now you will see this set a little bit later. You might know one other player that's in there, and it's going to make the top 5 of this video. But regardless, on this Willard Brown, the most expensive sale is about $4,000 for an SGC 5, but even low grade, a 1.5 sold for $2,100 back in 2023. I think that 5 was a pretty good price at $3,840 in my personal opinion. All right, Dania of Leon Day. The second time this set has been featured over here. The most expensive sale of this card was back in 2007. SGC 5.5 sold for $6,543. Another one, an SGC 1, sold for $1,440 back in 2023. Also, Raymond Brown is in this set, but hasn't sold since 2010. So it is possible Brown could have replaced Leon Day or Willard Brown that was featured a little bit earlier in the video. But since he didn't have a sale since 2010, and it was kind of a lower priced sale, he did not make the list. 1954 Dandy Potato Chips of Mickey Mantle. The highest graded out there is a PSA 9, and a PSA 8 has sold in 2022 for $43,195. Some other values on this card: a 2 sells for about $2,800, a 5 $5,300, and a 7 sells for $11,000. Pretty liquid card. I think I've owned one once, and it's sold within a week. Up next, another Mantle, 1952 Bowman, a fraction of his tops. The highest grade of this card out there is going to be a PSA 10. In 2022, a PSA 9 sold for $540,000. Some other values right now in the market: a 2 is about $2,000, a 5 is about $5,500, and an 8 is $24,000. We're jumping into our top 40 list, and this is a 1959 Sadadaro O Maroto Gum. And I might have mispronounced the Maroto Gum. And also, this card is probably should be a little higher in this list, but I don't know where to put it. I was looking at Prestige Collectibles, which is a Japanese auction house for baseball cards. And this card over here sold back in 2003 for about $2,244 as well as 80 cents. Now, predicting a price 20 years in the future, very, very tough. Obviously, the O market has increased quite a bit since 2003, but I couldn't find any public sales of this card, and I just didn't know where to put it, to be honest with you. But we're going to have 2 O cards back to back, and this is why I put this at number 40, because number 39, and which I will say also, a lot of O cards, I believe, are Minkos, which weren't specifically distributed with a company, whereas this one, it was a gum card, and it is. So I could be wrong a little bit on that. I'm not an expert in Japanese baseball cards, but from a little bit of research, I found that. Okay, so this is why I put that one at 40. In our 39 spot, we have a Shuken Shonen, and this was part of a magazine. They're hand cut. There's, I believe, 3 different players all together in strips. This was believed also to be the first O card produced. This was produced on March 18th of 1959, the earliest dated one. He has a lot of rookie cards in 1959. In fact, I believe there's close to 100. So it's kind of tough also kind of ranking these out there. But I did see that this one sold in a 3 for close to $15,000 back in 2022. So when you're like ranking these, I don't know exactly. Like, is this going to be a better card than this? Probably, maybe not, but again with comps, it's tough when you build these out. So I put them back to back on this side of things. I figure this is at least a $10,000 to $15,000 card in the 3 grade, and yeah, so grab that from Prestige Collectibles. And if Prestige is watching this video, let me know where you would think that these 2 cards would really be in this list, because that is one market like I said, I'm not an expert fully on Japanese cards. All right, number 38 is a 1953 Topps Mickey Mantle. The highest graded out there is going to be a PSA 10, with the most expensive sale being back in 2019 for almost $400,000. Some other values on this: a 2 about $2,700, a 5 $7,000, and then a 7 all the way up to $25,000, the price of a brand new car. Number 37, 1952 Star Decal Type 1 of Mickey Mantle. These are actually a bit more expensive than I kind of thought. And regardless, most of these are going to be an A grade. And back in 2017, 1A sold for about $12,000. Normally, these in Authentics are about $8,000. And think about it, maybe this should have been 38, and then the 53 should have been a little bit ahead. But still, when you're looking at an authentic grade selling for close to $10,000, it definitely needs to be on this list. 1959 Bazooka. There's actually 3 different types that are graded within the Pop Report. So you do have the grades of the full box intact. Then you have one with the tab at the bottom. And just to show you what the tab is, it would be this over here. And then they also grade just the card itself. So you can see this is the card, right? That would be the tab. So they have one with the card, one with the tab, and then the full box. So I broke up the different comps on these side of things. So a full box one sells slightly under $20,000. A non-tab in a 7, so just this outline over here, sold for $58,000. And then a tab in a 2.5 has sold for $11,000. Kind of just to limit them all together for this video. But yeah, they all came from the same box, 3 different ways to represent it in a slab. In the number 35 spot, we have a 1959 Morel Meats of Sandy Koufax. The highest graded out there is going to be a 7.5, and that 7.5 sold all the way back in 2018 for about $25,000. Some other values on this, right? A PSA 1 is about $1,200. An SJC 5.5 sold back in 2018 for $5,000. I think this would be a pretty good candidate of a card to get signed by Koufax. I still know he does some public signings. They are expensive, but being a super tough issue, it looks like this could have a really nice autograph here on the front. If someone has the funds and has this card, definitely get it signed. I'm curious if there's also any in the pop. All right, we're jumping into another 1959 Venezuela of Koufax. The highest graded out there is a 5. Back in 2022, a 4 sold for about $7,600. Some other values out there: a PSA 1 about $1,200, and a PSA 2 about $4,000. Going into this video, I would have thought the Mickey Mantle 59 Venny would outsell the Koufax, especially with how many Mantle collectors there are out there. But the 59 Venny of Koufax outsells it. And I think some of that has to do with Mantle has a ton of tougher issues in the early 50s. And obviously his first card's from 51, whereas Koufax's first card is in 1955. Had a much shorter career as well and doesn't have as many tough issues as Mantle does. But regardless, that was kind of a shock for me. Number 33 is a 1954 mascot dog food of Yogi Berra. The only sale I could find was a 6.5, and that sold for $12,500 back in 2022. A 1958 Hires Root Beer test issue of Willie Mays. There's actually 2 different Hires Root Beers out there. There's like a brown version, and then you have this one, which is pretty bright, and both also have a tab down below over here. Most expensive sale I could find was back in 2022. A PSA 4 sold for $10,626. Some other values: a PSA 1 is about $4,000. Also, I should mention that there's comps for the no tabs. The grading companies will grade it without this tab over here, and that sells for about $9,600 in a 7. And what's kind of interesting too, I was talking to a dealer once and he hated these tabs, and he removed the tabs from all the cards. Not the test issue, but the other Hires Root Beer from 58. And it kind of made me cringe because these tabs are tough to find, and he just hated putting them in larger top loaders, and he removed all the tabs. Ouch. Number 31 is a 1959 Home Run Derby of Mickey Mantle. The most expensive sale was a PSA 7 back in 2021, which sold slightly under $30,000. There is an 8 out there. Just some other values for you guys. A PSA 4 sells for about $9,000, and a PSA 5 is $18,000. This was a TV show promoting the first ever home run derby. Today it's a staple of All-Star Weekend, but that wasn't the case back in the 50s. All right, in the number 30 spot, we have a 1954 Stallmeyer's of Willie Mays. The highest out there is a PSA 9 that sold for $93,000 back in 2023. Even low grades, a 1 is about $2,200. A 5 sold for $42,000 in 2022. In the number 29 spot, we have a 1956 Cons of Frank Robinson. This was 1 year before his Topps card, which everyone calls his rookie card, but you do have an earlier issue on U.S. soil. I don't know. I'm not going to go into the rookie debate in this video, but the highest graded on this one is a PSA 5, with the most expensive sale being $8,700, which is an SGC 5.5 that sold in 2023. To give you a perspective, other values, SGC 1.5 about $3,000. Up next, we have another 1954 Stallmeyer's, this time of Mickey Mantle. The highest grade on this was 8, sold for $210,000 in 2022. Other grades, 1 about $5,000, a 2 about $20,000. And then we also have the 55. From doing research, 55 seems to be a little bit tougher than 54. Correct me if I am wrong, because I don't collect the Stallmeyer cards. But highest out there is a PSA 4 in comparison, right? 54 has an 8. This has only a 4. And the most expensive sale I could find was $16,200, which was a PSA 1. Again, these have nearly identical fronts. You can see side to side, but the backs are different. I kind of like the 55 back way better than the 54. I think 54 is kind of plain. This has the banner as well, and kids get your big league baseball cap. I think that's kind of cool. All right, we're number 26. We have an Ernie Banks rookie card. The highest out there is a PSA 10, a 9 sold in 2022 for almost $200,000. Spectrum of other grades: PSA 4 about $850, a 6 $3,500, and an 8 sells for about $22,000. We're jumping into our top 25 now. We have another O card. This is the Hashi Gengu. This one I've seen promoted quite a bit at a few different auction houses. The most expensive sale I saw was $52,800, which was for a PSA 8 in 2022. But there was a 9 that sold in 2024 for $33,000, and even a 6 in this card sells for $15,000. This image is used on other Mankos. The one I'm talking about has the gold border specifically, and I consider it probably one of the best O cards out there. Again, not an expert on Japanese cards, but from the auction houses promoting it, I would assume that's probably one of his top 5 out there. In the number 24 spot, 1952 Coca-Cola Playing Tips Test of Willie Mays. Highest graded is a 6, and the most expensive sale on this card was back in 2018 for $7,800. 2 did sell in 2021 for $4,100. Doesn't sell often, so it's kind of hard on where to put this specifically in the list. Obviously, Mays has passed, and I do expect these prices to go up a bit, especially since it's been 7 years since the highest sale. And the fact that a 2 sells for $4,100, and that's 4 years ago, yeah, it's a quite expensive one. In the number 23 spot, we have a 1958 Cons of Roberto Clemente. When I first learned about this card, a lot of people said it's a super tough Cons to find. And man, the comps do not lie, because an SGC 1 sells for about $12,600, and then you jump into a 4, $20,400. The highest out there is a PSA 6. But if you don't want to Cons Clemente, we will have another one in the honorable mention. Robinson, highest out there is a PSA 10. Most expensive sale, $122,000 back in 2022 for a PSA 9. Other values: a 3 is about $2,000, 5 $5,000, and a 7 $8,500. Number 21, we have a 1955 Sandy Koufax rookie card. Highest out there is a PSA 10, with the most expensive sale being close to $400,000 for a PSA 9. To give you perspective, other values: a 3 is about $900, 5 $1,800, and an 8 is $24,000. Number 20, another iconic rookie card, 1954 of Hank Aaron, card number 128. Highest out there is a PSA 10. The most expensive sale back in 2022 was a 9 that sold for $720,000. Other values: a 3 is about $3,000, 5 $5,000, and 8 goes up to $40,000. Number 19, 1955 Topps Roberto Clemente 164. Highest out there, a PSA 10. The PSA 9 in 2021 sold for $1.1 million. Other values: a 3 is about $1,800, 7 $15,000, and 8 is $50,000. Number 18 is a 1952 Topps of Jackie Robinson 312. I guess you know what the other 52 Topps card is going to be in this video. Regardless, highest graded is a 9. The most expensive sale was a 9 for almost $1 million back in 2021. Other values, a 3 about 8,200, 5 13,000, and a 7 is 30,000. Number 17, 1954 Wilson Franks Ted Williams. The highest graded out there is a PSA 9. In 2020, an 8 sold for 72,000. This is a pretty iconic card of Ted Williams. A 3 sold for 7,500 and a 5 sold for 20,000. 1953 Briggs Meat of Willie Mays. PSA Authentic sold in 2022 for $13,200. Look in some other authentic sales, they're about $8,000. I don't know if they're always going to be graded authentic or you can get numerical grades on this, but it's a quite expensive Mays card that's typically in pretty poor shape. 1953 Stallmeyer Frank of Mickey Mantle. The highest graded out there is going to be a PSA 9. I believe that was the one that was at the National recently. Most expensive sale was $68,125 for a 7 back in 2021. Other values, a 1 is about $5,500, a 2.5 sells for about $15,000. Number 14, we have a 1959 Dad's Cookies of Willie Mays. The only sale I could find was in 2024 where a 1 sold for $10,000. 1959 Yoo-Hoo of Mantle. Most expensive sale I found was in 2022 for a PSA 4, and that one sold for close to $50,000. 1951 Bowman Willie Mays, card number 305. Highest grade out there is a PSA 9. An 8.5 sold for close to $400,000 back in 2024. Some other values, one's about $3,000 right now, 3 7,000 and a 740 grand. Number 11 is Dad's Cookies Exhibits of Mickey Mantle. This one in a 1 sold for $21,600 back in 2024. And now before we jump into our top 10, there's going to be a lot of honorable mentions. Let's fly through these. 1951 Bowman Whitey Ford. The highest out there is a 9. Most expensive sale, $42,000 for an 8.5 in 2024. Rookie card of Whitey Ford. This can found in a 2 for about $250. 5 $12.50 at a 7 $5,000. Hoyt Wilhelm 392, one of the better rookie cards in the 52 set. This highest graded is a PSA 10. Most expensive sale, $54,000 for a 9 in 2022. PSA 2 about $1,200. 6 $3,000. 8 $8,000. 1952 Campy 314. Most expensive sale, about $38,000. There's actually a 10 out there. The $38,000 was a PSA 8.5, by the way. Other values, a 2 is $1,100, 5 $3,500, 7 is $5,000. Reese, Pee Wee Reese 333. Highest out there is a PSA 10. A 9 sold for $63,000 back in 2021. Even low grades, a 2 $700, 4 is $1,500, and a 6 $2,400. Eddie Matthews, man, I really wanted to make an exception for Matthews because this card have easily should have made the top 50. In fact, the fun fact about this card is it's the most expensive base rookie card Topps ever produced in low grades. Because if you look at it too, this sold for $3,700. And you look back on the list, at 54, Topps Aaron in a 2 is in $3,700. Clemente 2 is in $3,700. And I feel like Topps sometimes neglects the marketing behind Eddie Matthews, although, again, it's the most expensive vintage rookie card out there in low grade. But regardless, an 8 sold for $161,000 back in 2022. The highest out there is a 9. Value-wise, 2 $3,700, 5 $10,000, and a 7 $35 grand. 52 graybacks. So there isn't a full, how do I describe it? The hobby doesn't know how these graybacks were produced or distributed. So there's 2 theories. One of them that these were out of Canada. Another one is they're out of Kleenexes out of the Midwest. And maybe they're produced after 52 or they're just distributed after 52. Regardless, the graybacks go for a hefty premium. I just covered a grayback in my January 1950 or my January top 25 sales video on eBay. I looked at the checklist on graybacks. I think Billy Martin is probably the best one out there just because he's a Yankee legend. Regardless, the most highest graded one, this is a 7, which sold for $5,000 in 2016. But even a 2 sold for about $1,800 in 2020. A 4, for some reason, sold for $1,740. These are priced all over the place, but they are expensive. So always check your 52s for graybacks. They don't impact every single card. There's just a series of graybacks, so no grayback of Mantle or Eddie Matthews or Jackie Robinson. All right, 52 Burke Ross of Jackie Robinson. PSA 9 is the highest graded. Most expensive sale was a PSA 9 for almost $100,000 in 2022. A 1's about $1,000 for $1,800, and a 7 about $5,000. 53 Bowman Pee Wee Reese, such an iconic card. Wish it made the top 50, but the most expensive sale is $26,000, which kind of surprised me for a PSA 9 in 2022. Other values: 3 about $550, 5 $1,100, 7 $1,800. Stallmeyer of Roy Campanella, pretty expensive. The highest out there is an 8. A 7 sold for about $12,000. 1's about $1,500. A 2 is $2,000. What's kind of sad and funny is the 1 price is more expensive than most of the Roy Campanella rookie cards out of the 49 Bowman. You can find almost up to a 7, I believe, for $1,500 right now. All the 7s have gone crazy, but I believe like a 7's like $1,500 to $2,000, and you're looking at that at a PSA 1, which is crazy. 1953 JF 79 Kabaya Caramel of Babe Ruth. This was a Japanese card that I saw that sold. Highest grade out there is a 5. This 3 sold for $3,189. I don't have a lot of information for this card, so I do apologize, but it's cool to see Ruth in this list. 1954 Red Heart Musial, and like I mentioned in the intro, when I first started this video, I thought this was an easy card that would make it. Highest grade is a PSA 9. That 9 sold for $12,600, which is way less than I thought. Other values: a 2's $400, a 6 $1,500, 7 $2,000, and I love the color match on this one. Musial isn't in a lot of products. In fact, his first Topps card was back in 1958, and it was the All-Star card. 1959 has his first non-All-Star with Topps. It's one of those weird ones that just Topps never produced. It's a shame, because if he had a 52 Topps, it would be very expensive in my opinion. 1954 Red Heart of Mickey Mantle. Highest out there is a 10. A 9 sold for $27,200. 2 sold for $1,500. And then a 6 about $3,000. Also, I should mention these are called Red Hearts, but they were, I believe, like a promo with dog food. And for what I've heard, also talking to some dealers, these were distributed much longer than 1954, so that's why you see a lot of these in higher grades. 54 Al Kaline card number 201. 54 has 3 really big rookie cards. Al Kaline unfortunately did not make the cut. Highest graded is the PSA 10. That 10 sold in 2021 for almost $200,000. Other values: 3's $500, 5,000, 7 $2,500. 1954 Topps, they also have graybacks, except these graybacks we know come from Canada, and I believe it's only the first 50 cards in the set. Looking at the checklist, Ted Williams is going to be the biggest out of these first 50. These grayback prices are all over the place, to be honest with you. The highest I saw was $2,200 for a 5 in 2023, where a 3 goes for $400. I think there was a lot of value in that 3 grade, in my own personal opinion, especially if these are pretty tough, which I assume they are, right? Just a lot of people don't know about them. 1955 Felons Franks. This, I could not find an image of Robin Roberts, and actually, up before I recorded the video, I actually had this in the number 50 spot, and I put in the honorable mentions. There's no image of the card, there's no comps, but looking at some other commons in the set, they sell for $1 to $2K, and those were 5 years ago. I think this is anywhere from a $3,000 to $5,000 card. Maybe it could be way more, maybe it's less. I don't know. I originally had it at number 50, so I threw in the honorable mentions now because I did add in some other cards. And yeah, let me know if you are familiar with the set, where it really should be. I believe Robin Roberts is the only Hall of 1955 Cons of Ted K. This is the first year of Cons cards. Ted was the biggest name in that 55 list. These are all over the place. So in 2009, a 3 sold for $7,300. PSA 1 recently sold for $450. A 2.5 sold for $1,000 back in 2018. And again, another card that was in my top 50 and then got moved into the honorable mentions. A few of these Hocus Focus cards and non-sports, these are extremely expensive. They're super short printed. So I was curious on the baseball side of things where they're at. So Lou Gehrig, PSA 4 is the highest graded. That sold for $4,000 in 2023. A 2 sells for about $1,200. Babe Ruth, PSA 3 is the highest graded. SGC 3 sold for $2,500. 2 also is about $1,200. Another 1955 rookie card of Harmon Killebrew. Highest graded is a 10. In 2012, the 10 sold for $59,000. Low grade, right? 2 is about $125. 5, $325, 7, $1,000. 1955 Hunter of Stan Musial. Most of these are going to get authentic grade. They're terribly trimmed. The highest out of this is a 3.5. An authentic sold for $3,600 back in 2023. Prices vary quite a bit on this card just based off of the cut. And terrible cuts are $1,000 plus. This is considered one of the best Stan Musial cards out there. Hocus Focus 56 of Jackie Robinson. Highest out there is a PSA 8. That sold for $4,000 back in 2022. Other values, SGC 2 about $11.50. PSA 4 $18.31. A 6 sold for $27.60. 1957 High Grade Meats Seattle Rainers. I saw a bunch of these sell for about $510. This was a minor league team out of Seattle. And I think the best name out of those that sold was Joe Taylor. Now, if there's a better name, please just let me know. I'm not super familiar with the set until researching. And yeah, so like I said, out of all of them, they're about $500 a piece. And they were like pop 1 or pop 2 across the board. 1957 Topps Frank Robinson, right? The highest sold for $69,000 in 2021 as a 9. PSA 2 $120, PSA 5 $350, PSA 7 $1,300. Another Robinson. This time we're going to Brooks Robinson, card 328. Highest out there is a PSA 10. The PSA 10 sold in 2012 for $47,000. Other values: a 2's $350, 5 $700, 7 $1,600. 1958 Roger Maris, card number 47. Highest out there is a PSA 9. A 9 sold in 2024 for $31,200. Some other values: PSA 2 is about $150, 6 $500, and 8 $3,000. 1958 Packard Bell of Willie Mays. Highest graded is a 6.5. That 6.5 sold in 2022 for $8,400. So super close, making the top 50, by the way. Other values: 6 sells for about $5,000. Bell Brand Dodgers of Sandy Koufax. Highest grade out there is a PSA 9. 8.5 sold back in 2017 for $14,400. A 3 is about $1,200. 1959 Fleer Ted Williams. This is the most expensive card out of the 59 Fleer Ted Williams. This actually got pulled due to a licensing issue. I forget the player is next to Ted Williams, but it didn't have the license for Fleer, and that's why the card was pulled. But regardless, highest graded is a PSA 10. That 10 sold in 2020 for $35,000. A 1.5 in this is $455, 7 $900, 9 $5,500. I was kind of shocked in the low grade. I thought they would be a little bit more expensive, but then you look like a 7's $900. I would have thought that'd been more expensive as well. Because I always knew the 59 Flair, there's one card in there that's expensive. Everything else is kind of cheap. And yeah, the prices kind of surprised me. If I'm dropping $455 for a 1.5, I'd rather just save up for the 7 and get the $900 card. 59 Cons of Roberto Clemente. Here's another one for you guys. 1 year later, highest sale price on this was $56.40 for a PSA 7. You can find a 2 under $1,000, a 4 also about $1,000. Upgrade to the 4 for that $1,000 price point if you can. And yeah, way cheaper than the 58. 59 Home Run Derby of Willie Mays. Highest out there is a PSA 8. In 2021, a 7 sold for $15,600. 5 is about $5,000. 6 is about $6,000. 59 Bob Gibson, rookie 514. Highest sale out there is $324,000. A 4 $550. 6 $1,100, and 8 $5,500. Menko of Sadadaro. Oh, the highest grade out there of this card is a 2. Now, I do have this card in my personal collection. I was shocked at this PSA 1.5 sale because $25.20. I have seen some other raw sales of this card anywhere from like $500 plus, but this is a hand cut card, so it really depends on the condition on that side of things. Mine's labeled as authentic. I think the grading companies just had no idea when it first got in, and I want to say I paid like $300 at a Dallas card show for my copy. Now we are into the top 10. So maybe make some predictions. And also, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm putting out a lot of content right now, and I hope you guys do appreciate it because it takes a ton of time and research for these videos. 1954 Jim Constanti, probably mispronounced it. Roast me in the comments if you want. I only saw 2 authentic sales on record. 2024, an authentic sold for $19,200. In 2018, it sold for $45,000. Man, that's a huge decrease. But also, there's 2 cards in this 51 Topps Major League All-Stars that are impossible to find. So I guess when another one surfaces, the value does go down a bit. 52 Tip Top Bread, Mickey Mantle. Give me this card all day long over the 52 Topps. But highest out there is a PSA 2, most expensive sale $55,350 for 2021 PSA 1, And other values for PSA 1 right now are about 30,000. So about the going rate of a PSA 152 tops. Again, give me the tip top, although most people don't know exists. 53 Briggs Meat of Mickey Mantle. We saw the maze earlier. Mantle, $30,000 for a PSA Authentic in 2021. Right now, the going rate is about $20,000. But again, condition when you get to that authentic grade. 58 Minko of Jackie Robinson. I don't know why this one's so expensive, but a 1.5, about $25,000. The most expensive sale. It was a PSA 3.5 that sold for $54,000. Highest out there is going to be a PSA 8. 1953 Yamakatsu Mickey Mantle. This is the first Mickey Mantle card produced in Japan, and what you'll notice is the jersey number is different, right? He's wearing 6 over here. From research, this photo was taken in 1951. The SGC 1.5 sold for $83.50 back in 2015, which I did some research on this. This was slightly less than a 52 Mantle and a PSE 2 grade back in 2015. Probably a $30,000 to $40,000 card today, maybe more. Mantle market is so unpredictable. There's a lot of people with money that buy into Mantle cards, so all it takes is a bidding war. This could be a little bit higher on the list, or it could be a little bit lower, but I felt like this was a pretty good spot. All right, and we have a 54 Mascot Dog Food. You saw the bear a little bit earlier. I figured Mantle was the second best. 5 sold for $82,000 back in 2020. Also, there was a BVG 1.5 that sold for $54,000. Super expensive. All right, Robin Roberts, 1951 over here. Again, 2 authentic sales on record, 2018, 132,000, 2024, 66, which is literally half of it. Kind of surprising how much that has gone down. But again, super tough card to find. All right, number 3 spot, we have a 1951 Bowman of Mickey Mantle. The highest out there is a PSA 10, but 9 sold for about $3.2 million. Even in a 1 grade, these are about $13,000, $640,000, $325,000. This could be controversial with some people, but Josh Gibson, the 1950 Toleteros, is going to be my number 2 card. This card was produced after Josh Gibson has passed away, but this is his first widely available card. He does have a real photo postcard produced way earlier, and that card is easily a multi-million-dollar card. But the problem with real photo postcards is, one, you don't know how many are out there, and it's super tough to document them all. Regardless, the highest graded out there on this card is a PSA 8. The most expensive sale in 2021, a PSA 4 sold for $104,000. But what was interesting is an SGC 1 in 2024 sold for $86,400. Man, this card has gone up quite a bit over the time. This is a card I wanted to have at some point, but I'm not dropping $86,000 on a one, even if I had an unlimited amount of money, which I don't. So no chance of owning this card one day. But we'll jump into card number 1. It's super predictable, but that is the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. PSA 10 is the highest graded. A 9 sold for $5.2 million. 2 right now is about $40,000. A 4 is $80,000, and then 8's $1.2 million. So again, a 4 on this Mantle or a 1 on this Josh Gibson. I do think these Josh Gibson cards have a bit room to grow still long term, and it's a super iconic card in my personal opinion for a tough issue. But regardless, this Mantle has to take that number 1 spot. It's a card that a lot of people want in the hobby. Personally, I think it's overpriced, but regardless, it has its spot as number 1. Hope you guys enjoy this video. I'm going to put on the screen right now another video that I did a lot of research on. And like I said, if you found value in it, make sure to subscribe to the channel. These take a ton of time to produce, and I will catch you in